It's on. All right, welcome everyone. We'll call this meeting to order of the Oshkosh Area School District Board, Wednesday, May 27th, 2026. Are we in compliance with open meeting law? No.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. All right. Roll call, please.
Ford.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Snowy.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Wright. Wyman.
Here.
All right, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll welcome the students from Lakeside up to lead us. And you guys come right up here. Just get us started.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think that's the best one we've had, actually. All right, hang on a second, guys. You got presents.
Spirited one we've
I
had.
have Zachary Hazley. There you go, Zach.
Wait, was that?
Paisley? Yeah, this was on TV.
And on YouTube.
That's okay. Are you Paisley?
No.
There you go. Congrats. Sebastian?
Yes. And then
Zachary? All right. You guys want to get a picture?
Sure.
All right.
By a parent.
Yep.
Just Kim.
Come on over.
Yeah, come on.
Sorry it has to do with me, but
Sebastian. Over here.
what grade are you all in?
Fifth.
Fifth? All?
Yeah.
Well, congrats. Sixth grade soon, right?
Couple days.
All right. We'll finish strong, all right? Thank you.
Yeah, we are ready.
A second. All right, now principal highlights from Ryan King, Lakeside Elementary Principal.
Good evening.
Evening.
My name is Ryan King, and I'm the proud principal of Lakeside Elementary School. I get the honor to kind of wrap up the school year here for everybody. But just a lot to be really proud of at Lakeside. Some great things happening inside and out of our building, and a few things to really highlight. First, in April of last year, I had the chance to sit in front of this board and talk about the field study that we did with CKLA, and we had the fortune then, outside of maybe some new staff to our building, to really dive into year two. And there's a ton to be proud of there because we really were able to kind of shift from that like compliance to the curriculum to really making it creative and expanding the learning opportunities for our students. So if you were able to stop by Lakeside this year, you saw a lot of teachers really leaning into what the resource said, but what the standards are and where we fit in the middle of that for our students. And there were great learning opportunities to be had, and there's a lot of great celebration. And just a few highlights here. Our second grade is doing some aviation work right now, and the teachers put together an opportunity for the students to take a field trip to EAA. And it's learning opportunities like that to connect to our community and the resource. That's been really great. Our first and fourth graders collaborated because they were both working on the Boston Tea Party. So we had over 100 people in our building having our own little tea party. And again, just great opportunities for stuff like that to happen. Our building right now is decorated with cave art because our kindergartners just learned about different artists. And so they did their own little artwork. And then our fifth grade just celebrated their Midsummer's Night Dream culminating activity. These people in our building, Miss Crooks, Miss Homan, and Miss Wollink, are three incredibly special teachers to our building. Those are our specials teachers, music, PE, and art. And I just wanted to give them a special shout out because what they did to really help build our school community this year was second to none. If you were at our school concert this year, arguably the best one I've ever been to, we had this kind of accidental moment where I went out a little too early to close things down, and it turned into this then like encore at the end where our entire school sang a song together, and it was just really, really cool to experience. Miss Homan and Miss Wollink were a big part in making our Unplug and Play family night happen, so to connect families through board games and card games and things to do during the summer, which was amazing. And then we had a fine arts night that celebrated just cultures from all around the world. That was connected directly to our CKLA resource, which was great to see. And at Lakeside, we have 90 to 95% family turnout in those, so it is a really, really amazing, awesome events to have. We couldn't do this without, though, the partnerships that we have. Huge shout out goes to our PTO. We have an incredible family connections to our building that were helped to, financially raise, the money to help us do different things, to connect us to different resources that we needed. And they just do whatever they can to give our students and staff as much as they possibly can. And it's a really awesome team to have. Some change in that team next year, but I have no doubt that they're going to be, back and, raising more funds than ever before. And then we did have Northwestern Mutual and Blended Waxes of Oshkosh become official business partners of Lakeside this year. And both from a volunteer and financial side of things, they both jumped in to help us out, and that was really great. But most importantly, and the piece that I want to make sure that I highlight, is just the incredibly hardworking staff that we have at Lakeside altogether. We saw some meaningful improvement in our Gallup, but it's because of the strong reflection, engagement, trust, and just overall satisfaction in our building, because everybody shows up every single day just connected to what we're doing for kids and truly caring about everybody. And that's what makes the work really hard. But that's what makes it really rewarding as well. So I always welcome visitors and guests. Come on out, take the drive down, the Lakeside Road there, and it's a special place to be because of the special people we have working there, and the families we have showing up every day. So great things happening. Really proud of what we've done this year, and we're excited to wrap it up and take a little rest this summer. Any questions for me?
Questions?
Thanks for sharing.
Okay.
Ryan. Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me tonight. Have a good rest of your meeting.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks,
you.
Brian.
All right, on to the land acknowledgement.
All right, as we gather today, we'd like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh we're on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shore of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest lake, entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout the generations and pay respects to their elders, past and present. We welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Thank you. Approval of agenda. Any changes? All right, then on to board administrative reports. We'll start, it sounds like, with the mission moment.
I think that's me.
Oh, yes.
Oh, if you two want to come up and
Yeah.
you can still, and I'll do the introduction of you. Okay, so each year, the Oshkosh Area School District welcomes up to 10 exchange students from around the world, 5 each at both North and West. And it's my pleasure tonight to introduce Eugenia and Magda, who are 2 of those 10 students this year. They are both here through the AFS exchange program, and I'm lucky to have gotten to know both of them over the past year. Eugenia is a senior at North and is hosted by the Ybarra family, who's here tonight, and supported by our family, just coincidentally. And Magda is a senior at West and hosted by the Jasinski family and supported by the Lizvardi family. And today is her 17th birthday as well, so happy birthday to her, and lucky us to get to spend some of her night with us. But I think I speak for the board when I say that we're so glad that you guys are here in Oshkosh, and I hope that you've had a rewarding educational, cultural exchange experience here in the Oshkosh Area School District. And as our mission moment tonight, we were asking that we'd love it if you two shared your short letters describing your time here. And again, thank you for being with us this year and tonight.
Okay. May 27, 2026. Dear Oshkosh School Board, Administration, Staff, and Community, my name is Eugenia. I'm 17 years old and I'm from Turin, Italy. I was able to come to Oshkosh North High School thanks to the AFS organization as an AFS exchange student. I would like to sincerely thank you for welcoming me during my time here in Wisconsin. I have now been in the United States for almost 10 months, and this experience has meant so much to me. One of my favorite things about your community and the school is the people. I have made amazing friends who made me feel at home, even when everything around me was new and a little confusing at first. I'm also very grateful to the teachers who have helped me along the way.
I would like to say thank you especially to Miss Bergen, Miss Rankin, Mr. O, Mr. Denza, Miss Seeley, and Miss Ashman. They made me experience what a real teacher-student connection feels like. How wholesome and heartwarming is being able to open up about my feelings, my worries, my sadness, and at first my difficulties in speaking English. They hugged me and comforted me when back home things were going bad. They told me what real passionate teaching is. They make kids become interesting about their class and come to school with a smile because we know we are going to have fun in their classes. A special thanks goes to Miss Teen, my counselor. She always supported me and helped me figure out how to deal with my emotion and also how to find my classes around school because there are too many always. I also had the chance to try new things like the dance team and the Key Club, which I will never forget. And speaking of unforgettable moments, I will always remember the first time I stepped inside one of your classrooms, full of pictures and posters. It felt like I had stepped straight into a movie. I will never forget experiences like homecoming and prom. Back in Italy, we don't really have anything like that, so it felt very special to be a part of it. During this month, I have not only improved my English, but also taught me a lot about myself. And I have to say, I will miss American high school spirit for sure. Thank you for making me feel welcome, supported, and included. You have given me memories, friendship, and experiences that I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Also, I want to say a big thank you to my dear AFSOS family, Edgar, Tamara, and Matteo Ibarra, who have opened their home and hearts for a complete stranger. I did not expect I will go home with two families. Thank you, Ibarra family, for this unforgettable year. I hope to come back some days, and of course, you are always welcome in Italy. Thank you so much. Sincerely, Eugenia.
Dear Oshkosh School Board, Administration, teachers, and host family, my name is Magda, and as of today, I'm 17 years old. I'm from a little town in Germany called Altetting, and I got to spend my exchange year at Oshkosh West High School. Before I say anything, I sincerely wanted to thank you. My exchange year has been everything I've dreamt of, partly thanks to Oshkosh Area School District, but also thanks to my host parents, Michael Jasinski and Cordelia Bolus. These two took me into their home, together with their own daughter Zosha, who is graduating together with me on Saturday, and showed me that home is so much more than a place. It's the community surrounding you, the people who support you, and the moments that make you feel like you truly belong. Oshkosh West's motto, "You belong," isn't just a slogan made up for the public. It is something I felt through the entire school year. It didn't matter if I was holding a speech in forensics, running a mile on the track, or talking about sports news and sports broadcasting. There always was someone cheering me on from the sidelines. My friends Aubrey Epprecht, Riley Lecker, or my teachers who patiently listened to my endless yapping made me feel welcome from day one. A special thank you to my social studies teachers, Mrs. Hunt, Mr. Lewis, and Mr. Bertram, who always encouraged me to bring a German perspective into classes like AP Government, AP US History, or Contemporary Issues. If you know me, you know I never really had a problem with talking. Some might even call me a professional yapper. But some things seem a little big, especially holding a speech in front of the entire school. I've never been this nervous. But Miss Hill, my forensics teacher, calmed me down and reminded me that basically anything is possible, as long as you believe in yourself. Sometimes that might be difficult, especially when you're sitting in front of your Chromebook, trying to finish up an English paper about Frederick Douglass for Mrs. Scott's English V Honors class. However, to quote my track coach, Senora Cornell, that's when you need to push yourself. Staying in your comfort zone won't help you achieve new dreams. If I hadn't stepped out of my comfort zone, I wouldn't be here today. I am here because I decided to follow my dreams through a program called CBYX, Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange. Sponsored by both the Congress and the German Bundestag, this program allows students from all over Germany and the US to visit each other's countries. You become a youth ambassador, immersing yourself in a new culture while teaching others about your own. Organizations like AFS then take it upon themselves to place the students in school districts and host families. At this time, I would like to thank Kim Thompson and Amber Lasvardi. Kim is my local coordinator and puts her heart in AFS so students like me can experience the American high school dream. Amber is my liaison, who only lives a few minutes away and who I could talk to whenever I needed support. That is truly one thing I love about AFS, but also the American school system, the support you get and the encouragement to try new things. Whether it was out trying new sports, writing for the newspaper, joining classes I never imagined myself taking, or simply speaking up and being myself, I always felt supported. people here don't just succeed academically, they want you to grow as a person. So as I'm coming to an end, I once again want to thank you for the wonderful year Oshkosh West has given me. You belong is not just an empty slogan. I truly felt like I belonged here. This school, this community, and the people in it have changed my life in ways I will never forget. No matter where I go next or what I do in the future, a part of me will always stay here in Oshkosh. Thank you for welcoming a student from Germany with open arms, for cheering me on, for believing in me, and giving me memories that will last a lifetime. Thank you so much.
You have a...
Yeah. As a part, I'm a sponsored program student, which is the CYX program, which I just talked about. And I wanted to give you this certificate, which acknowledges that you took on a sponsored program student and a little flag from Germany.
So much. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
Do you guys want to do a photo op so that
Yes,
you can
let's
put
do
it on
a
the
photo.
gram?
Yeah. Thank you. Take both. Yes, let's do a little photo. You guys want to hold it? Maybe hold it. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Well done. Congratulations.
Good job, you two.
Nice job.
That's great. You guys can go now too if you want.
You want a lesson in local
Thank you.
government?
Unless you want to
Thank
stay
you.
for
Thank
if
you.
you come from politics.
All right, on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, a lot of great things going on as we're closing up the school year this year. We start at Carl Traeger Elementary students, and staff recently became a permanent part of the school history by signing the structural steel beams that are supporting the school's new 4-classroom addition. Funded by the community's support of the April 2025 facilities referendum, this new wing will temporarily house the District 4K classes next year before becoming a permanent home for Traeger kindergartners in the fall of 2027. There were so many smiles and students took place in the ongoing construction and left their mark in their own foundation for their school's future. Thanks for participating in that. Last week we celebrated a major milestone with our 10th annual Care Days, celebrating abilities, rallying everyone, hosted at Oshkosh West. At the largest inclusive student event in our region, this special day brought together over 150 adapted physical education students alongside high school student volunteers and their choice cheerleaders for athletic competitions, carnival games, and friendship. We extend the heartfelt gratitude of our dedicated staff, the incredible student volunteers, and our generous community donors who made this decade of joy and unity possible. Franklin Elementary celebrated a surprise $5,000 donation from Burlington Stores and Adopt-A-School Classroom.org, which was presented during the grand opening of Oshkosh's new retail store. This generous funding will go directly to Franklin teachers to purchase items and supplies for their classrooms. Schools and district leadership, as well as board members Beth Wyman and Dr. Barb Herzog, joined the Oshkosh Chamber and the Franklin PTO members for the ribbon cutting ceremony, which was streamed live so students and staff could share in the excitement. So congratulations and thank you for that generous donation. Oshkosh West drama students took their talents on the road to perform the Trial of Goldilocks for elementary students at E. Cook and Franklin. This unique initiative featured students performing a creative mock court case between Goldilocks and the Three Bears, while also speaking in rhymes. Many of the students had never stepped foot on the stage before taking this class. West students also stayed to eat lunch and connect with the kindergarten through second grade students at E. Cook. This collaboration perfectly showcases how our high school experiences can engage younger students, build mentorship, and bring joy. In April, the MELT program at Val Phillips teamed up with the Oshkosh Corp employee volunteers and one of our own high school youth apprentices for a fun parachute launch learning lab. With the help of volunteers, students constructed their own parachutes, loaded them into launchers, and sent them into the air. This was a valuable hands-on lesson in engineering and design concepts, and it deepened their understanding of kinetic energy. Earlier this month, we kicked off the graduation festivities by celebrating our 51 graduates of the Riverside Alternative Education Program, a collaborative partnership with Fox Valley Technical College. This program provides a self-paced environment for students to complete their high school requirements, engage in volunteer experiences, and explore careers. The ceremony was highlighted students' growth and gratitude, with a message of encouraging them to deliberately follow their dreams. Congratulations to all those graduates. Fourth graders at Menominee recently celebrated the end of their clay unit with a special ice cream sundae party generously sponsored by the PTO. As part of the learning, students rolled clay slabs into decorative bowls and applied glazes to make their own creations for food safe and functional. The celebration allowed students to actually use their artwork as they created from scratch, highlighting how our elementary art curriculum beautifully scaffolds skills for kindergarten through 5th grade. A big congratulations goes out to Oshkosh North senior Antonio Thompson. Tony was recently named a national finalist for the prestigious Jimmy Awards, a historic first for our district. Out of the more than 2,200 students at the Fox Cities Performing Arts Center Showcase, Tony was one of only 2 performers selected to advance to the national stage. This June, he will embark on a 10-day residency at Juilliard in New York City, participating in intensive workshops with Broadway industry professionals and competing for national scholarships. Congratulations, Tony, on this incredible achievement. We are excited to honor the class of 2026 during the graduation ceremonies at the Oshkosh Arena on this Saturday, May 30th. The entire Oshkosh community is invited and encouraged to experience the graduation ceremonies virtually. The live stream links are available on the screen and on our website. So congratulations to the class of 2026. And finally, just a list of places I've been able to get out to in the last couple of weeks. So again, thank you everyone for your hospitality and some great things as we're ending up the school year. And that concludes the superintendent's good news report for tonight.
Excellent. And it looks like we have one verbal report from Sam Coleman on the May 13th board listening session.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. The May 13th listening session had 4 speakers present. Those speakers spoke about the following topics. One speaker described the recommendation and potential benefit of a strategy to provide positive messaging and phone calls home to make sure families and parents and guardians are aware of the successes and wins that students experience at school. This was mentioned particularly in response to a theme that occurred around most of the contact home from schools include things that need to be addressed or corrected. And so having that balanced or led with positive phone calls home was recommended. Another community member talked about the importance of prioritizing student joy, especially in early grades, as we approach our work to provide more rigor and more engagement, also not forgetting joy. The same speaker talked about Mr. Miller's departure from the school district as a result of restructuring due to budget constraints, and indicated that there's a lesson that the district and community should learn about committing to priorities to address gaps in achievement. Lastly, that same speaker talked about secondary school conferences between parents and students to be more about getting to know the student as a learner and as a person instead of prioritizing grades and performance. Next speaker talked about a phenomenal teacher at Emmeline Cook and gave that teacher essentially praise in light of some difficult times that the school community at Emmeline Cook is experiencing. And then lastly, a speaker provided insights about the importance of listening sessions and opportunities to gain community feedback in ways that align with themes that emerged from the School Search Summit, the Future Search Summit. That speaker talked about the importance to prioritize additional themes that have been acknowledged or remarks that have been provided at previous listening sessions, along with information that we heard from participants of the Future Search. That same community member also talked about the need for an update on the work group regarding the school resource officer memorandum of understanding and any policy-related changes. That completes the summary of the May 13th listening session. The next listening session is scheduled for June 10th.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next two items are written reports that are in the record, and I just, little changing things up here. We're gonna start acting, treating written reports truly as written reports, and only bringing people up and asking questions if we have them. So if anyone has any questions for Matt, I know about the required wellness committee and policy update.
I don't think it's a question for Matt, but I'll just say that
Yeah.
I was one of the people that was on the wellness committee, and I think if Matt were up here speaking, he would express his appreciation for all the people from the community who came in. It was a wide variety of people from the district and other community partners who came in, and it was a really productive and interesting conversation that I think will help give us some guideposts moving forward on much more than just our actual wellness policy.
Excellent.
And work will continue in policy and governance on the specific policy as well.
Excellent. Any other comments from the board? All right, the next one, the Oshkosh School Summit Survey Update. Any questions or comments?
I was a little confused about the survey that went out. It wasn't clear to me from the survey if we were asking the public, the staff, the students to come up with a different priority listing, or were we asking to take the list of 6 that was presented to us that came out of that summit and see if we had missed anything and potentially add to it?
So the structure of the survey was to allow for community members, anybody taking the survey, to see all 18 themes
Okay.
that were produced at the summit, and then select 6 that they would want to prioritize. And then there was also an open-ended question to see if there was one thing that was missed, for a theme. Then people could submit that theme, if you will. So to see if there was anything that was missed. So that was how it was. That's how it was structured.
Okay, so I guess I'm still confused then. So might we have a different list of 6 than the list that we were presented with at the last board meeting?
No. So when we get the results, we'll see if there was, from the survey results, to see if there was a prioritized list of 6 that come from the prioritized results from the survey. And then the board will have to have a discussion related to the priorities that came up at the summit and what the results were from the survey, and then work through a process of developing what the top priorities will be in the framework.
Okay, I think all I had asked for that night was to make sure that we got input from the stakeholder groups in terms of what would be the benchmarks, what would be the metrics that we would be looking at within those 6. I wasn't looking for adding to that list of 6. I thought that was pretty well defined at the summit.
Thanks, Barb. And when will the survey be closed?
The survey is closed this Friday, so
Okay.
the 29th. And then we'll have results to you on June 10th at the next meeting, and begin that discussion.
All right.
Thank you.
There's nothing else. We'll move on to other reports. Do we have one from Facilities and Finance?
We do.
I thought so.
Dr. Ford? Oops, that's the agenda. You don't want me to read the agenda. The Facilities and Finance Committee met on Thursday, May 14th at 7:30 a.m. with 3 members present, Herzog, Wyman, and Hess. The first item of business was to discuss new FTE requests. Sabrina Johnson provided a brief overview of what the district has done in the past regarding temporary positions. She noted that some of these temporary positions are filled every year and recommended that some of them become permanent or regular positions. The committee also discussed FTE requests, including a 1.0 IST literacy interventionist at Bell Phillips Middle School to close the achievement gaps, a 1-to-1 cross-categorical assistant at Lakeside Elementary as required by a student's IEP, that is an individual education plan, and a half-time cross-categorical teacher at Carl Traeger Elementary to support special education growth. Additionally, a 1.0 sign language interpreter was discussed for Menominee Elementary to support a student transitioning to kindergarten. And if you look at the consent resolution for tonight, you'll see that these positions are included in that list. Speech and language pathologist teacher sub-rates were discussed in order to bring Oshkosh into a more competitive realm with Appleton and Little Chute. The district recommended a rate of $250 a day for a standard assignment and $300 per day for long-term roles exceeding 20 days. This change attempts to attract and retain highly qualified retirees and master's level professionals who are essential for maintaining mandated IEP services. Mr. Yerke introduced Eric Cass from PMA Securities, who then guided the committee through a discussion on bond issuance. The committee then discussed the monthly cadence of budget variance reports, noting that these had become sporadic since January. It was agreed that the budget variance report should be brought back to the committee in June to ensure the focus remains on the current year's performance alongside next year's budget planning. Excuse me. The committee expressed a desire to establish a new presentation framework for these reports, emphasizing the need for a deliberate process and clear reporting structure during the transition period. Mr. Yerke also asked the committee to consider how they would like to seek the name for the new middle school. The committee discussed the upcoming process for naming the new middle school, emphasizing the need to begin soon in order to facilitate decisions on school colors and mascots. There was a clear consensus to move forward with the so-called Menominee process rather than the approach used for Val Phillips, as the former was viewed as more detailed, nuanced, and successful in maintaining community harmony. Members highlighted the importance of clearly communicating that committee feedback is advisory, with the school board retaining the final decision-making authority. The committee also noted future considerations regarding the potential memorialization of names from decommissioned schools and the development of policies related to purchasing naming rights. Mr. Yerke also provided a quick update on passing the air quality tests at the North Field House. The floors are all set to be done by the start of the upcoming school year. Mercury test results after the grind was complete showed a rapid linear decline in mercury. 2 subsequent tests met the criteria, passing under the more stringent Minnesota standard of 750, which gave the environmental consultant confidence that the environment is stable and will not release additional mercury. This project successfully eliminated an existing hazard before a large investment in a new floor, thus preventing future increased costs and unpredictable environmental issues down the road. Mr. Yerke also provided a referendum update, noting that construction projects are progressing very well, with air conditioning expected to be completed by the end of July in the 3 elementary schools. A key discussion point was ADA compliance with the new PAC, that is the Performing Arts Center at North High, where a Bluetooth technology through Auracast was recommended for the audio. This would be very helpful for the hearing impaired due to its broad reach and alignment with future technology. Regarding the new school plans, stormwater retention at the middle school site will be addressed by leveraging parking lots and areas along the entrance, including a potential underground storage on the 18th Street side, ensuring that playground and outdoor gym space are preserved. The committee agreed to resume monthly board reports once above-ground construction is more visible, with a potential shift in frequency later. The next meeting is scheduled for June 11th at 7:30 a.m.
Thank you, Barb.
Sure. A lot there.
And now we have the Policy and Governance Committee meeting. Molly.
Our last Policy and Governance Committee meeting was on Thursday, May 21st. We had basically 3 categories of what the policies we looked at fell into. Either they will be coming back to Policy and Governance for more, after a little bit more work is done on them, or they are coming tonight in the consent agenda, or there were no changes after review for those. Those that are being recommended for a vote tonight are 7530.02, school and staff use of personal communication devices, 5500, Code of Classroom Conduct, then also 5520, Disorderly Conduct, and those are the 3 for tonight. The ones that will be coming back to committee our 2131.01 reading literacy instructional goals and assessment to make sure that we have the level that we want of information about any literacy related benchmarks or goals, and also to make sure that the entire policy is consistent with Act 20, because some language was incorporated and others were not. Then also coming back will be 5540 schools and law enforcement agencies, 5771 search and seizure, and 8407 school resource officer program, all just to incorporate some additional changes that were made in the meeting. Then the ones that are not actually having any action taken were ones that were asked to be reviewed related to the discipline and SRO policy related issues, and they just had no changes, and that is 5517 student anti-harassment and 551701 bullying, and I think that's it. Excuse me, no, so 8462.01 threats of violence, no changes to that policy as well. Our next meeting is scheduled for June 18th, also at 7:30 a.m.
Awesome, thank you. Our next item is agenda-related public forum. So just a reminder, a total of 45 minutes during the meeting will be allotted for non-agenda and agenda-related public forum. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak. Public comment priority will be given to residents of the school district and those who have students enrolled in the school district or employees of the school district. That said, anybody's welcome to talk. For safety purposes, people providing their public comments will need to state the city they reside in and not their specific address. We have one individual signed up for the agenda-related forum, and it's Mallory Schneider-Birschbach. Welcome, Mallory.
Hello. Good evening. I'm speaking tonight in regards to the school summit and comments that were made by the board members at the last meeting relating to this event. I was pretty surprised to hear words such as repulsive and disappointment when the results of the summit were discussed. As someone who was able to attend 2 out of the 3 days, it's pretty disheartening to hear the time and work that participants put into the event to be discussed in such a manner. I can understand some criticism in the process, but please don't devalue or disregard the work that so many put into this. Ultimately, not all of our priorities could be voted to the top, and that's okay. The worst thing that this board could do is say that they value community input, but only when it matters or matches to their personal priorities. The conversation at the last meeting started to feel a bit like conclusion shopping, and as someone who was a science major in college, this is not how we conduct proper research. I simply ask that while we are entitled to our own opinions, that we do not devalue, belittle, or ignore the work others put into the summit. I look forward to hearing additional feedback from the community and the creation of a strategic plan and KPIs that incorporate that feedback. And also on an unrelated note, I wanted to give a quick thanks to all the staff, volunteers, and sponsors involved with the district's Care Days. This is my son's 2nd year participating, and he had a great time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mallory. We have nobody signed up for non-agenda related public forum. That's correct, right? All right, not missing anybody. Then we'll move on to the consent resolution. Or no, workshop, I'm sorry. This is my 2nd meeting, forgive me. I just was, nervous about what the Todds are gonna have to say. So welcome, come on up, Todd and Todd.
All right, so tonight we're looking at our budget forecast and recommendations for next school year for the 2027. So we have Todd Hajewski from Baird, School Business Specialist, former business manager down in the Milwaukee suburban area. And then Todd Gray, Finance and Operational Consultant, also a former business manager here in Oshkosh, as long as other places. But thank you guys for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. I'm going to take the board and community just through a slide as we get started, just to make sure we can ground ourselves on where we were previously. So this is next slide is looking back from April 22nd. So the last time that we met to discuss the budget forecasting, just wanted to ground ourselves in what our journey has been over the last couple months. So, so this slide was taken from, again, from our slideshow at the meeting on April 22nd, outlines what our forecasting deficit was and the increase in that deficit, outlines some of the rationale around why that deficit needed to increase, and then provided the estimated range of our new deficit as we're moving forward between 2.75 and 3.25. So again, this is the work that we started back on April 22nd. As a result of that meeting, then the recommendation was to be able to get some third-party experts. So enter Todd and Todd into the conversation. So since April 22nd, since this conversation, we've had several meetings and several conversations just related to both forecasting, which would be Todd Hajewski's lane, related to Baird Financial forecasting model, to make sure that we were exhaustive in the development of our model and can raise the level of confidence in that model. And then also working with Todd Gray on just some potential recommendations, which we'll go through tonight. Also want to note, since April 22nd, one of the important consequences that occurred in Wisconsin was a couple weeks ago when we had a legislative proposal to provide school districts across Wisconsin with some support, both for taxpayer relief, but also more significantly for us in this equation, would be reimbursement for special education aid. So we had about $4.5 million that we had over a 2-year period of time that was proposed as part of an agreement with the governor and leadership from the legislature, which was voted down by the state Senate. So that implication of voting down that vote has direct consequences into our budget update. So I just wanted to be able to provide that context for us. And just the importance of just continued legislative advocacy as we're moving forward. I talked to Senator Dazzler-Alfheim right after the vote to make sure that we can stay in touch with her, but just really disappointed in the state Senate not being able to come through for us. So that's again, just want to provide a little bit of historical context since we originally had this conversation, and then I'm going to pass it over to Todd and Todd, our third-party experts, just to work through from their insights what they saw in the forecasting process, and then we'll roll into a few of our recommendations. So we're going to turn it over to you guys. So thanks for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Well, when Brian called me, the first thing he expressed was, you know, he thinks that there's another 5.5 they have to cut, but there was not a lot of faith in that forecast. So I said, call Todd at Baird, come and do a deep dive forecast. I said, you could probably do it yourself with Excel and so on, but the problem is that's going to take you forever. So the Baird model gets a pretty accurate forecast pretty quickly. And so that's what he did, and obviously came up with the number that's closer to $3 million in additional cuts that are needed. So with that, I think we've kind of brainstormed. We've met virtually a few times and kind of gone over some different scenarios. And quite honestly, I think there's a lot of, I guess, I don't know, I would say easy fixes, but there's a lot of fixes. I think there's a lot of districts that would love to have some of the things in place here that you can use for a year, 1 year to get through this. Brian also mentioned that his staffing, he said he was done. Between the board and Brian, no more staffing reductions. Although you still may get some through summer resignations. Back when I was here in the late 80s, 90s, there were always a number of resignations, summer resignations. Back then, the increasing enrollment, so they were always filled, but those are some opportunities too to again reduce some of the staffing numbers, which Todd had looked at and said, you know, there's some areas that probably could use some trimming in terms of number of staff FT in certain areas, and I'll let him discuss that.
Yeah, so that so kind of my role. I've worked with the district on we have our budget forecast model, and then our school analytics, which has comparable data and year-over-year data, financial, staffing, things like that. So as Dr. Davis mentioned, we looked at just kind of the assumptions that were used in the 26-27 budget. You know, in the time frame, it wasn't a complete deep dive, but just looking over certain areas and the reasonability of, of certain assumptions and increases, things like that, that were all brought to administration and all seemed reasonable. One of the things we talked about was the, new, I think, improved way of budgeting for compensation. Now all the positions are in your financial software and able to kind of better budget for those. And then there's a little bit of, when there's always in a larger district of how you budget for vacancies, you need to be able to budget for those positions being full. But, historically, you're probably not necessarily always filling all those positions all the time. But, some of those vacancies also could be potential, the reductions that were made as well, too. So everything seemed reasonable there. And then it was looking at kind of the comparable districts, looking at different areas, which some of them are in the packet there of where we identified where the district potentially was, spending more than in those comparable districts. So looking at potentially the student-teacher ratios, your district being on the lower end with some of those comparable districts. Looking at on the health insurance or total benefit side per student was on that higher end, which includes your OPEB contribution for retirees, and then looked at on the health insurance side and what the district spends on a monthly premium for single and family plans compared to those other districts as well too. On the special education side as well too, some of the cross-categorical teachers and just general spending in Fund 27 as well too, were just some areas that we identified compared to those comparable peers that were a little bit higher than normal. So
I would say one of the adjustments that we needed to make too, as we looked at special education reimbursement and what the forecasting model said, again, we were aligning it with the 45%. That was the commitment from the legislature. So we adjusted that adjusted that amount for next year, adjusting down to 40%. And so that, again, results in about $1.4 million for us, which we need to add to the deficit. So we're right now, the new forecast, again, as Todd had gone through, looking at about 4.2 to 4.6 million, like in that range. And I've got a slide coming up here that just kind of walks us through what that progression has been. So again, as we've had numbers, the forecast evolved from the fall to right now. I just wanted to try to be able to follow that path. So again, in our fall estimate, deficit was $5.5 million. As we made staffing reductions in January and through April, we were able to reduce $7.8 million. So to be able to cover that 5.5, but again, in our April 22nd meeting, we had talked about some of the increases that we were experiencing with our new forecasting model to the point of $5.4 million, which got us to an estimated deficit at that April 22nd meeting of 3.1. And with the special education adjustment that we made in this last forecast, or final forecast of where we are right now, would be 4.5 million. And again, this would be for the 26-27 school year for next year. So, and forecasts do refine themselves over time. So I wanted to make sure that we could track that as we're moving forward. And important to know that, where our goalpost is here as we're tracking our final reductions, that $4.5 million is the number that we have confidence that we want to be able to hit for next year. We'll talk a little bit about future years at the very end here of how we're tracking through that, but wanted to be able to just, again, walk the board and community just through those steps as we progressed throughout the year as we go. So maybe we'll pause there and see if there's any questions. We'll go into some of the charts and some of the forecasting as we go, but just want to make sure for board members if there was anything at this point. So, Barb.
I appreciated the district's approach back in January to wait to see how the student registration at the high school and middle school would go as far as what classes students wanted to take. And so we didn't have those numbers available to us until maybe early April. And there was nothing shared, there was nothing communicated solidly with the Facilities and Finance Committee from January until that end of April board report. I'm wondering if there couldn't have been more communication with not only facilities and finance, but with the entire board, that potentially we needed to cut more. Because we were, I think many of us were on the assumption that we needed to cut $5.5 million. With the budget reductions in terms of staffing, primarily at the high school, based on student numbers, we actually had cut up to $7.8 million, and there was nothing shared at that point that was definitive that we would have to cut more. The only conversation I recall was around special education and how much the state would actually provide, because they had not provided a sum sufficient to cover all the special education costs. They had provided a sum certain. And so we knew that we were likely to get less than the 42% or 45%, whatever it was, for this year. But that was the only reference that I recall to a potential additional decrease. So I guess I'm wondering, and this may be rhetorical, I'm wondering if there couldn't have been more or better communication with the entire board on these potential items. Could we have anticipated those and shared those, so that we didn't find ourselves in a position at the second board meeting in April that here was a surprise. We suddenly have to cut more than $3 million, which we hadn't known about.
Yeah, I think maybe to move it off of rhetorical, just for a quick quick response. And Brian Yerke and I had talked about it actually this afternoon, is especially with the OPEB and healthcare, being able to track claims and have a regular communication on what our claims are coming in at, because that hasn't been a consistent communication, and that directly affects our costs in those two areas. So I think that's something that we can start even this fall. We don't have to, it doesn't have to wait to that window in the spring, but just start on that. And I think that'll be a communication, good communication, not only with the board, but I think also with our staff. As we're looking at what our claims, are, because the usage of our health plan and the way our health plan is structured is very important to how our performance is, and we have quite a bit of work to do in that regard. So I think that's one thing that we can take away just from some of our reflections to be able to help improve communications as we're moving forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a follow-up to that then? Because to be clear, we are talking tonight about next year's forecast. We still have to deal with all of those claims coming in this year where we expect to have some unexpected, I don't know if it's unexpected or not, but we expect to have more adjustments, correct, for this year?
We'll see. Yeah, I mean the claims, because the claims are delayed. So yeah, that's something that we're monitoring for this year. Correct.
Okay.
I look at this and I say, we had the first crack at it in the December-January timeframe, where we proposed the $5.5 million. We took a second crack at it in April, where we had these additional $5.4 million that we're seeing here. And now we brought in the experts to take the third crack at it. And I'm hoping at this stage we've got it right. But I'm also going to say at this stage, we're now proposing solutions that are, while we can say we're not cutting teachers, we are potentially going to ask for increased health insurance for our staff, and I'm not excited by that at all. So I'm going to be very critical of what we are talking about tonight, and I got some serious questions that make me very worried about where we are at. So I want to start with, first, I think Mr. Gray, you were giving your colleague here accolades on the budget forecasting model that Baird provides. My question is, I see that the district has paid $41,000 since July of 2022 to Baird, and the invoices seem to be for budget modeling and forecasting and analytics software subscription. And so my question is, if we were paying roughly $8,000 a year, what were we getting for that? And what have we done differently that all of a sudden we're happy now that we know what's going on?
Well, I mean, you should have paid, I think, $6,000 for this, maybe $7,000 was the thing this year. So that includes our budget forecast model, which we have about 289 districts in the state utilize, and then our analytics that allows for comparisons. And, you know, we offer a tool, we offer support. It's only going to be as good as the assumptions that are put in. And, you know, we work with districts all the time, but if you know, they enter an assumption for 3% health insurance that comes back 6 or things like that, you know, we support what we can, but unfortunately we're not able to, you know, verify every assumption that every district's going to make in it. But we certainly support where we can. So.
And do you know, did we seek your support at any time, or you may not be? I appreciate.
Yeah, no,
you may not be
I'm
the
happy.
one. If you happen to know,
yeah, I
please.
mean, the district did come to our workshops that we have in the fall. We offer open gyms in the spring. We're always offering one-on-one support. You know, I will just say I came up to the district for a full day, no additional charge for this as well here, all part of the support for the district. And there wasn't a lot of one-on-one support, that we would offer, but I did not hear about that. But we did come to some of our group workshops, things like that.
Thank you. I've got some questions about this here, the special education of $1.6 million. When I look at the middle one, the spring forecast, that was the April, right?
Yeah, that was April, yeah. And that was around staffing as we were working through our staffing adjustments, getting our staffing all into our financial software and syncing our employee management resource into that software. We, as we were doing a deeper dive there, found that there was some special education staff that was not accounted for. So that was just reconciling that difference is what that was.
Okay. So can we back up one slide? This one. So we're now proposing that we've found an additional $1.4 million of expenses related to special education.
Well, we had said that the forecast that we had that we were working off of was that 45% reimbursement, and so therefore, in order to what we felt was going to be an accurate perspective, was going to be at about 40%. So we wanted to be able to make that adjustment, and that comes to about 1.4 million.
And I'm struggling with that because on January 28th, we got a report from the Director of Business Services at that time. And I think it was Ms. Wyman asked the question about special education, what would happen if we got the full amount? And at that point in time, the Director of Business Services, he told
Bigger
us.
jump's going to be the next year when we go. Right now, I've got 40% built in for reimbursement when it's supposed to be 45.
So he's telling us next year he's built in 40%. And I'm going, well, if he built in 40%, is this real? That's for next year. He told us he used 45%, appreciating he went on to talk about that it's some certain, and if you get some certain, you can't guarantee a percentage. So he was backing off using 40%. So I'm going.
Yeah. So when we looked at the model about 3 weeks ago, when we sat, and that's why we had Todd come up and comb through the model, had HR, had business services, had everybody at the table and comb through the model. That's what we found in the model and needed to make that adjustment. So
we were just, your explanation is he misinformed us back then?
Explanation is that comment didn't get transferred into the model. And we want to make sure, because tonight is about making sure that we've got confidence in the model, making sure that the model is accurate. And so if we had any adjustments that we needed to make to the model, that's what we were working through when we had Todd available to be able to work through that, hence getting a third and fourth set of eyes on it, and wanted to make those adjustments. So we didn't have to come back and make any adjustments or do any of that later. So that's why we want to be transparent about that tonight, and then be able to, again, know where the goalposts are as well as we can.
Okay, that's all I got up until this point.
Anybody else?
I have questions about staffing, but is it okay if I just wait till the end to see if it gets
Yeah.
addressed
Yep.
later?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll have Todd Ajewski. Again, there was a couple slides that were related to some health insurance comparables and then some staffing ratios. So, I don't know, Todd, if you want to just provide some context to this, just an example of what is
Yep,
part of the BEAR
absolutely.
tool.
So this is, so this is this is one of the visuals in our school analytics. So looking at, this one here looks at, and this is data, this is all public data that comes from the Department of Administration, one of the few reports that does not go to the Department of Instruction. It is a survey that goes from school districts to this. It is not audited, and we have found there are, we found errors in the data in the past, so we can't guarantee that it's 100% accurate. But what the pulling from the Department of Administration, this is sorting it by monthly premium. So the top is going to be for a single plan, the bottom is going to be a family plan, how it's reported in this report, and the employer. You have the largest employer contribution on a monthly basis in these plans. So again, something that there's a lot of connecting visuals, and then we saw in the financial end where you spend more on your benefits per student compared to other districts. It makes sense this is related to it. Then looking at the health insurance side, where you're potentially paying more than those comparable districts.
When you say we spend, do you refer to the OASD contribution or the total amount?
So this right here, so if you look here, the kind of dark green is the
Mhm.
employer portion of that. So, and it's sorted in descending order. So you have that total premiums. You can see that looks like Fond du Lac's a little bit higher than you in the total premiums if you look at the total of the bar.
Gotcha.
But they have a larger portion of the employee contribution of it. And again, this is just the premium side. It doesn't necessarily show exactly what the plan is, but it's the district's cost. And when you're looking at where your higher costs potentially are, this is one of them.
Thank you.
And that goes to plan design too. I mean, I'm looking at Oshkosh, I look at Waukesha, and I know Waukesha, as of a couple of years ago, had a very high deductible plan, but then also, I think gave a $3,500, $3,600 health savings account to everybody who had the family plan, and then something less for. So I mean, plan design does have a big impact. Experience to a certain extent, but with these bigger districts, it's more plan design that drives those costs.
Go ahead.
I think mine will be a much more simple question than
Okay.
yours. So I think you're both maybe getting to my basic question, because one of my takeaways here is that Oshkosh, as compared to other districts, has higher premiums too. So, but is that where is the rest of the cost for those other districts? Or do we have a bad plan that we should be looking at?
Well, your plan may be very, I guess, generous compared to other plans. I think Brian said 0% deductible, whereas some of these districts are 6, 7, 8, as much as $10,000 deductible. Now, they also provide a health savings account, which offsets that, but doesn't offset at all. So that's part of the equation too.
I appreciate when you ask. No, you asked it simply, and I always get too technical on things, so I think you did perfectly. Because that's my takeaway from this too, is that I think in general we're saying Oshkosh spends more on health insurance than the average. That's what I see here. Now,
Right.
and you're
And
suggesting.
also the premium, the amount that the employees pay for the premium is considerably lower here than
Right.
pretty much throughout the state.
But overall, it's all.
I mean, my take was that we went to this self-funded health insurance because we thought we were getting a good deal, that we were saving money. And I don't know whether that's the case or that's not the case.
You might be, because I mean,
Right.
as I look at your premium costs, I'm looking at the family plan, that's not too far off where others are at. And again, I don't know the plan design, but you've got a relatively generous plan. And that monthly premium, I work with a lot of small districts, and I think some of them would like to have only a $2,400
Right.
monthly family premium. But given your size, obviously that helps keep that overall cost down. But you really have to look at plan design along with this to determine if you're way out of whack or not compared to the other districts.
I mean, I think I'm safe at saying the teachers in the room here probably don't want to continue to change plans over and over and over again. But at the same time, I look at this, and I do see what you're saying in terms of what we're asking them to contribute seems to be less than everyone else. But at some point, I look at this and it makes me feel like we need to go in and get an accurate comparison, and I think you've accurately described some people are giving health savings account, and that could be counted against that somehow. I think if we're looking at truly evaluating where can we save money, this is a major expense for us, and I think we've got to evaluate that. And ultimately, I think my question for you guys is, who's the expert at helping us do that evaluation?
Oh, there's a lot of companies. I've used Acture. They're relatively independent out of the Milwaukee area. I'm not sure who. There's companies that will do that. They're independent. They will come in and analyze that, especially for self-funding. They might work with the United Healthcare. They might work with some of the big ones, and they can run side-by-side comparisons. They can take your plan basically and insert, okay, let's say we want the same configuration as Waukesha, and they can tell you pretty closely what that is going to cost on a monthly basis.
Perfect.
I don't think we can make a decision, and I know we're not doing it tonight, on health insurance until we do some more research to see where we are. And I'm not comfortable going to a teacher saying we're going to increase your rates without understanding exactly what it does to the bottom line and what it does to their pocketbook, without knowing all the deductibles and all the intricacies of the different
Well, you're
plans.
late in the year to make any kind of plan design at this point, I believe. I mean, for the size district, that'd be pretty tough to do.
It sounds like, though, that should be on our agenda, to research our health insurance comparables and what are we getting for our money, and what impact does that have on our staff and our retirees.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's an important priority for us over the summer and then into the fall, as we look at our renewals are the calendar years, so January to December. So I think, some important work in the upcoming months to prepare for January if we're going to look at any modifications. So Todd had also put together just some staffing comparables over the next couple charts.
Yes. So this one is just fairly straightforward. And the 25-26 staffing data just came out from the DPI just in this last couple of weeks. So this is just looking at, and you can look at different positions, different assignment areas. This is just all FTE in a. So it's all your students, your enrollment divided by all of your FTE in a teacher assignment, and just looking at the third lowest, which would mean less students per teacher and potentially more staff compared to those comparables.
And then go ahead.
Should we just ask this? Okay, because these were my staffing questions that I had then. Do we have any way of forecasting what our anticipated student-to-teacher ratio is for next year with our assumptions for number of students and after all the cuts have been made to the number of staff? Like, do we have, I'm not saying we need to know it tonight, but it would help us to know how much we've moved the needle on this, because that was the major goal of everything we went through this year.
Yeah, we need some time to put that together. I mean, we logistically, I'd probably want to do that after, we start school next year, just as there, could be some potential, again, changes over the summer, but yeah, at some point we could lock that in.
I think once we have our third Friday count, we'll know for sure what it is, but it sure seems to me that I think we need to have that much better if we're going to be saying that we're still overstaffed. on this. And then my other thing on this is also to reiterate my concern with the heavy staffing commentary that we have a lot for us is I still would like to know, because we do have a lot of people in this district who are licensed teacher and therefore are counted in this ratio, who are not classroom teachers, who are not student facing, who have a variety of roles. And I've asked since November, I've been asking for us to figure that out before we have to make the next cuts.
Yeah.
So I'll just reiterate that ask, please.
Yeah, that'll be on our radar as we move to the fall. I also just want to comment, as we've been doing the budget after action debriefs at every building. I think there's a real tension point that we have to come to terms with, is that even though we're looking at our ratios, and our ratios are low compared to our peers, we also have a declining student enrollment, but rising needs. Like, we have more needs in our schools, and when you talk to staff who are working with students every day, they'll tell you we have more needs now to be able to work through and support families with and support students with than we ever have before. And so unfortunately our funding doesn't follow the need necessarily, it follows the student. And so that's where in our current structure we just have this like disconnect and point of tension that is not unique to Oshkosh, but really just the way schools are funded across our state, especially when special education is going to continue to be underfunded as it is. That's certainly a spot where there's a lot of money spent and the support is insufficient. So I just wanted to recognize that, because we've had a lot of good, authentic conversations with our teachers, with our paras, with our principals at each building, and just acknowledge the difficult work. And because sometimes this chart looks like, well, like, let's just eliminate a bunch of positions. Like, we have real needs to navigate through and need to be strategic as we're doing that. So,
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate your phrasing too. Just stating staffing is heavy compared to peers. That may seem like a subtle statement, but there's a difference between a factual statement. If you come out here and say we're overstaffed, that's a value statement, and I think comparisons, that's factual. We're not saying that we're overstaffed.
I've been in a number of schools this year, looked in classrooms, been in classrooms. I have never seen a class less than 20 students. And this shows an average of 11. I've never seen any classes like that. To me, it would be more meaningful if we could take all of those people who have the title teacher and separate those out who are classroom facing, as Mrs. Smiltnick has pointed out, and those who are not, such as the behavior interventionists, the literacy coaches, the math coaches. And that, to me, would give us a truer student-teacher ratio. I don't know what those numbers look like in those other districts, but I'm not willing to say that we are overstaffed, because if these numbers include the non-classroom facing teachers, to me that number is lower than what we would expect.
yeah, what we won't be able to do is do a comparison. We'll be able to run the exercise that you're asking for. What we won't be able to do is compare that to other districts,
fine.
because we won't have those details.
Right.
So, you have to look at those peers, and like, does Appleton have a lot of professionals that are not facing students directly and in support roles? They do, right? Is that comparison to us? Kind of hard to tell. So,
Right.
So there's some limitations. I think there's benefit for us as we're working strategically through our staffing model over the next couple of years to be able to have that information. But I think that it'll fall a little bit short when we're talking about comparisons.
And that's fine, Dr. Davis. I would just like a truer number of classroom-facing teachers to student ratios than what is presented here. And we can also have one that includes all the teachers and give us that ratio, and so we can see the comparison. But I'm quite sure we don't have many classrooms in this district that have 11 students in regular education.
No, we could never.
And I've heard from some of our elementary staff who have great concerns over the behavior of some of our elementary students coming to our schools, thus defining the need for more behavior interventionists or behavior interventionist work. It's not simply trying to teach students to read and to do math, although that's pretty important. very important. But if people aren't behaving, children aren't behaving, that's problematic for them and for their peers. And so that's an area that we really need to look at if we're going to move forward with student growth and student learning.
Yeah, Jacob.
Well, I'm just looking at that and listening to everybody. When Barb says that we don't even have any 11-to-1
I
ratio.
haven't seen
well,
that.
you haven't
Either.
seen that many.
Right.
What is the point of this graph then if you're saying that we have no comparables that we can judge on other school districts?
So we can run comparables as it's shown right here. We're running licensed teachers, and Todd can go into some of those details. We can run comparables at this level, but once you start to drill down, there's nuances between districts that once we would drill down, it would be much more difficult to do.
We actually can. So this looks at just all assignment areas. So you can dig in and you can say, I want to eliminate the instructional coaches. When you record a teacher position, they have to have an assignment with them. So you can look at an individual assignment. You want to look at just elementary teachers or just cross-categorical teachers or just math teachers. You can do that. Or you can exclude, you can exclude certain ones as well too. And you can also, so this is looking at a district-wide, and we've run this exercise in many districts because they want to know this, and you can also look at it as schools as well too. So if you want to just look at your high school math teachers compared to other high schools in the area, you can do that. So this is just very high level, and many districts going through this, you can pick what assignment areas if you want to do district or school. So you can get much more detailed than this as well.
Good. And this is a cross-cat example.
Yeah, and this is looking at, so you can also look, and that's just teachers. You can look at specific positions as well too, whether it be counselors or psychologists. This is looking at, instead of just all students, it's looking at students with disabilities over a certain position assignment area. So like students with disabilities over cross-categorical
I guess more
teachers.
of my question is, with such a wide discrepancy, from 11 to 19 in certain districts to 18, how are they handling all of the situations that we have to deal with the staffing that they currently have?
I will just know, again, I don't think that you guys are in a unique situation. I mean, I think this is all across the state, and this is, districts using tools like this to be able to look at and what are the areas that, very similar situation you're going through, and being able to make those, use that, use the data to make some decisions. So, I'd say I've seen a number of districts that are doing that and digging into each of these in the details, and maybe, okay, they're low student-teacher ratio. At the elementaries, they're comparable, but at the middle school and high school, then it's lower, and then they can do there. So, yeah.
I guess I know there has to be comparisons in general, but I don't like to compare to other districts because we have our own issues, we have our own problems, so
Sure, yeah.
we need to focus on those issues and not worry about what all the other districts are doing.
Some of that may be the number of schools too. You have a number of smaller schools, and I know you're consolidating, and that will definitely help that picture because you'll be able to create some economies of scale in some area where maybe, I think you have a couple of schools that are around the 250 mark. Whereas you mentioned Appleton, but their smallest one's probably 400. So they're able to do some different things with, grade level and economies of scale.
I just want to make a point off of Jacob's point of, because you guys are the numbers guys and the numbers and money guys, but I do think it's an interesting scenario to look at of other districts are facing the same challenges of discipline or behaviors and things like that in the classroom. And I think we as a board have to look at these numbers and say, okay, so what are the other levers that we can control? Of maybe it's not always more is more. Sometimes we just have to have more effectiveness, and I think that's the other thing that we have to think through as we are making sure we're providing appropriate training to staff and supporting them in different ways, because it's not always going to be, our solution can't be to put more people in each classroom at this point.
And just to clarify, I value those people who are teachers who are non-classroom facing. I'm not trying to suggest anything about their worth. They perform a valuable service. So I just want to make that clear.
All right, thank you.
All right, so moving into recommendations. And again, this is something that we worked through with Todd and Todd. Todd Grett, just wondering if you would be willing just to kind of walk through, what we had talked about, and
Well, we talked, I'm going to back up and just, the idea here, and what I would recommend is developing a if-then matrix, because you're going to see a lot of different ideas here. You look at the district savings on the healthcare premiums, one's a 3% increase, one's a 4%, and up to 7%. Do you need that? And again, with this matrix, if things change throughout the next couple of months, and they will, I mean, you don't have your July 1st estimate, you need your third Friday count, you don't know what your open enrollment out is, you don't know what your voucher situation is, and all those impact these things. But by having, taking all the areas that we're gonna look at here, prioritizing those that, the transfer of service is automatic. That doesn't affect anybody or anything. That should be without question. Whether you want to increase premium share for employees, that may be a higher priority save, so to speak. And then as you look at some of the other items here, there might be areas that, we're going to talk about some things here. Fund 46, for example, there's some available funding there. How much do we use for that? If we value the maintaining the premium share, maybe we use more of Fund 46 to help bridge that gap. That's just one example, but there's a lot of different things that can be done. We looked at the how much is being transferred into the Fund 70 fund balance. You've got a really healthy fund balance there. You could, I think $4 million is going in between 10 and 27. Todd Bryan figured that if we cut that in half, they could make that work. So there's $2 million there. And again, the 1.3 for 46, you have a healthy fund balance there. And I think anything you do here, you may not want to use those fund balances, but if it's protecting the Fund 10 balance, the Fund 10 fund balance is far more flexible. You can use that for anything. 46 and 73 can only be used for those specific items. And if you have those costs or those needs, and you can pull from those funds a one-time, because again, next year, you get a clean slate, and you can maybe redo some of the things that you maybe wanted to do heading into this year. But these are some real options here that close that $4 million gap pretty quickly. And like I said, I believe there's a lot of districts that would like to have this amount of flexibility within your Fund 10 and your Fund 27 budgets along with 46. So you've set yourself up here previously pretty well to manage this year's issues.
So walk me through the fund transfer from Fund 73, what that would mean long-term.
Well, you're estimating that you're going to pay out about $2.9 million in retiree benefits for 26-27 out of Fund 10, and another $1.1 million for Fund 27.
Okay.
So there's $4 million instead of, and that was going to come out of a transfer from Fund 10 to pay those. You only transfer half that amount to fund, and then you use some of the fund balances currently in Fund 73 to cover the remaining $1 million. Now you don't know entirely. You don't know what your retirements are, so that number could end up being less. And that's where I'm saying the if-then matrix, as you go along over the next few months, you can start, some things you can cast in stone, like we saw with the, maybe the Fund 46 or with the transfer of service. You can nail those down right away, and then some of the other things, maybe we don't want to do much with the premium share right now, or make that a minimal amount. So that would be a high priority item that sits on the sideline until, whoops, we have no choice, but we have to maybe take a look at that.
In the OPEB, reducing that fund balance, does that have any impact on our long-term OPEB liability?
Sure, but I mean, the bottom line is.
I guess in English, right? I want to make sure we're not creating another problem 5-10 years down the line.
I don't believe so. If it's if you're doing it every year, But if it's a one-time shot for that amount, only $2 million out of what's in 16 million. 16 million. It's a one-time fix. Now, that doesn't mean you're gonna walk away from that. You may wanna then, the next year, start finding a way to over replenish that. In other words, then when you have some more flexibility in next year's budget, you start rebuilding that fund balance.
Okay, and the Fund 46, so that would be just transferring some of the expenses we were going to use out of our Fund 10 budget, instead
Right,
take
some
them
of the
directly out
capital
of Fund
projects.
46, which is a totally
Right,
okay
right.
use, because that's what
Yes,
it's for.
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Especially for one-time projects as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing for Fund 73 to keep in mind as well too is you have until July 30th after the fiscal year ends to make a contribution. So if you say you budgeted 2 million, but things came back better and you had a little flexibility, you could always make another contribution up until July 30th to, if you wanted to up that up. If you had flexibility next year, you have some flexibility
Right.
too.
I suggest we're probably not going to find those funds. Brian, would you have any issue with using the Fund 46? I mean, long-term for our capital improvements plan?
No, I think as a one-time bridge, again, I think being able to just, and that's where this slide was put in as a short-term, one-time bridges to next year, then I think it's appropriate. It fits within the long range. Those projects are within our 10-year plan, so it meets the criteria for Fund 46. I think that would be appropriate.
So,
Okay, Tim.
can I ask about that? On April 22nd, we had a resolution 17, which was to modify our present year budget. We chose not to do it because we realized we were in trouble in terms of projecting for next year, and we wanted to know, have these guys look at everything and make sure we're confident. But in that, one of the recommendations that we were going to do was take, it was 1.67 million from Fund 46 and cover this year's expenses. And so are we still going to do that? And are we actually proposing 1.67 for this year and 1.3 for next year? So in total, we're actually taking 3 million out? Is that?
That'll be on the table, yeah. I mean, that would be something, again,
I mean,
that's part of the context for tonight.
Right, and that's my struggle, is I want to make sure that when we are looking at these things, we are cognizant of what we were thinking of doing this year, and I think that's kind of to Molly's point and Barb's point, that we also need to not just be addressing this, but also understand where we are presently, because that's, 1.3 million out of 5.7, I don't feel bad about that necessarily, but when you're talking about 3 million, I start to go, it's slightly different, so.
Yeah, and I think something that certainly to be conscious of, and that's why I'd want to have it be a one-year bridge, and be aware that, that's something we have to pay attention to, similar to OPEB, but obviously there's more cushion there.
Todd, you said something about transfer of service, and your comment was that's a no-brainer.
Right.
Walk me through that one, if you would. That my understanding is transfer of service is I get to ask the community for more money if we have an increase in expenses due to students coming from other agencies or outside of the country, and they are either English language learners or special education, and we're calling this one a special education transfer of service, correct?
Well, it depends on who comes and where they come from.
Right.
But I mean, it is, I mean, there's someone's gonna have to cover it, of course, but the bottom line is, it's one of those things that, maybe if the state had gone back to, one time, back in the late 80s, early 90s, the state funded 60% of special ed costs. And it kind of hit, and now I think they're looking at 35%. So it is a cost to the district, and it's one of those areas that it gives you an opportunity make up some of that funding.
But it's not an increased expense, it's a lack of getting reimbursed, right? Going from 45% down to 40%.
Well, it could be an increase in expense, new expenses.
But I mean, that's my point.
Yeah.
When we're using transfer of service to reduce a budget deficit, by definition, transfer of service, we get to go to the local property taxpayer because there's an increase of expense.
Right.
And so how does that save us any money if there's $900,000 of increased expenses, but I get to go ask the property taxpayer? That seems like that's a net
again,
zero
assuming
proposition.
that 900, the expenses have already been built into the budget. So if they built this budget forecast without the transfer of service, they built in 900,000 in expenses, but didn't build in the corresponding 900 in revenues.
But in 24-25, we spent 31.75 million. This last year, we budgeted 31.86 million, so an additional $100,000. But then in April, when we did that, we didn't vote on the adjusted budget. We were only budgeting or changing Fund 27 by 16,000. So we really only got $117,000 more from 24-25 to 25-26. So if I want 900,000, that means I need to get the 783,000 in additional expenses next year. And I don't know that we know that we've got incoming students that.
We can run those claims. We've got, we can get you an outline of what those claims are.
Because it
Or
has
what
to
those claims
be,
would be.
it has to be new expenses, right? Not just higher cost to existing kids, right?
Yeah, that's what.
And we think we're coming up with an additional.
Transfer services, yeah.
Hmm.
And I think part of the concern previously was that increase to taxpayers. I think that's where there was a concern about coming in, so.
And my no-brainer comment was it was something you could do that doesn't affect programming, it doesn't affect staffing or anything else, doesn't impact your various fund balances. So,
Because,
that-
like last year, the typical, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what they said is the increase in local property taxes due to the public school districts across the state on average was 7.8%, right? I think that,
something
I
to that
think,
effect, yeah.
and had this proposal a couple weeks ago passed, a large portion of that is due to the increase in revenue limit from the 400-year veto. This proposal that we had that the Senate shut down would have allocated more state aid and effectively have nullified the effect of that for this coming year. But that got shot down.
Correct.
So property taxpayers, unless the Senate gets back together and the legislature gets back together, we're already going to get hit because of that, and this would just only add to it. So, I mean, I understand why we want to do that, but I think as we go down the road, what I'm going to be advocating for is if we go that route, this is the referendum levy proposal that we had here. This is what we pitched to the community. And if you notice, we pitched 21.5 million for the first 5 years, and then we were going to drop down. We have room in that. And I would propose if we're already going to hit the local property taxpayer because of the increase in revenue limit, that if we intend on doing something like this, that we redo our financing ever so slightly to modify that so that the local property taxpayer doesn't have to take another hit on it. It'll mean we have to pay more out in later years on our referendum levy, but somehow I would like to adjust that because it's going to, and especially because I see at the very end of this, we're going to be talking about going to the community for a operational referendum in 2028. I think at some point you got to show them we're not just going to hit you every single time, and this would be one way of doing that. So,
Well, your revenue control, and I didn't do a comparison of multiple years, but you're basically, you went into this year with a drop of 150 kids. So even with the 325 added on per year, I'd have to run this, I'd have to do another analysis. You may actually be having less revenue other than these other exemptions from one year to the next. Your revenue could be dropping literally, which normally would, I guess, be a benefit to property taxpayers, but the state then decided not to allocate the normal percentage of dollars to property tax relief, so.
I understand what you're saying, except then we also get that declining enrollment exemption that tends to make up for that loss of, we end up collecting it for that 1 year.
Yeah.
So, but I get what you're saying.
It doesn't cover it all, but
Yep.
again, as I work with districts around the state, they're seeing less revenue from the revenue control formula, basically. Unless they had a referendum or something to that effect.
All right, keep rolling.
All right. Okay, so we, again, went through those recommendations, and I think Todd had brought up just looking at creating an if-then matrix to do some prioritization, which I think is an important point. That's not in here, but I think that's something that we can pick up. For next steps, again, no decisions tonight. Wanted to be able to have discussion, raise awareness of our current situation. I think as we look at, the reason I put June in there, just related to employee share of healthcare, health insurance starting in September. If we were to look back at what that savings would be for an increased employee contribution, if we were to capture an entire year's worth of savings, which is what was put on that chart, we would need to not wait until January to do the employee health care share. We'd have to make that adjustment in September in order to have that savings, because that's the difference between our school calendar being September to May or September to June and our health insurance renewal going from January to December. There's some savings misalignment there, if you will. And so we would need at least 45 days notice to be able to make that change for our employee share for our health insurance. So based on what I'm hearing tonight, feedback that we've gotten from staff, my proposal would be to wait on that discussion, work through our matrices, some prioritization, wait till we get some of our other numbers. As Todd had mentioned, we have on here, looking at our state aid estimate, our enrollment count on third Friday, and our final aid allocation. Those are some things that are going to take place. So I would propose that we put off any decisions related to employee share of healthcare before we get to probably October, where we'd have all this information in, and then can study some of the options, run the matrix, and study some of the options as we would have moving forward.
So am I correct, Brian, and that would mean that individuals currently on the healthcare plan would have the chance to open enroll with full knowledge of what the new plan is going to cost them?
Correct, and that would be in our typical open enrollment process that would begin on January 1st.
Okay.
Yep.
And can I ask a question about that? We talked about we don't know really what's included in each one of these plans for district as far as co-pays and coverage, and is there a way to work with a healthcare company that could kind of tell us, because yes, we're paying a lot and that's great. I just don't feel comfortable with these numbers to make a decision.
Yeah. I would propose we get a work group together internally, having union representation to be able to work through over the next probably 3 months to be able to land something late September, early October, where we can pull in some of the consultants related to getting those comparisons done. Work with Todd on the forecasting, drilling down a little bit more into staffing if we can show some of those nuances, because that's of interest for us. And I think that sets us up really well then for also looking at our prioritization after we get the third Friday count, what reductions we need to make, and then the forecasting that we would have as we would move forward. So,
Jacob's going.
So I just said, so when we talk about supporting our teachers and are in the classroom and outside of the classroom, I have a hard time with the health insurance premium increases for them. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, $100, $200, and I know we're not voting on it right now. But with that being said, if it were something that we voted not to do, pass this, do we have a plan B for where we're going to get the extra $2 million basically?
That's what we would need to work through. So as Todd was talking about our if-then matrix.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll need to have some plan as we would be looking at that, again, depending on where we would need. We would essentially, if you were to look at, and again, this is theoretical, so this will all be in the matrix that we would work through. But if you look at number 1, number 3, and number 4, if we were to execute those, we would need about $400,000, $500,000 left in order to make that 4.5% or $4.5 million reduction. So we would be think about it, we'd be approximately $500,000 short if we went 1, 3, and 4 right now in that matrix. And if we didn't want to increase staff premiums, then it'd be $500,000 is the amount that we would be looking at. But again, in that process, that's why we want to develop the matrix, so we can just see that as a visual up front and then have conversations.
Yeah, I just want to make sure if that didn't go through, we have to know where we're getting the rest of that funding from.
Yep, absolutely.
And will the if-then matrix also then have something to account for the additional $500,000-ish in cuts that we're going to need to make if we just, because 1, 3, and 4 does not get us there, correct?
Right, about $500,000.
Right.
Yes,
so,
yeah. So that would be inside the matrix, what that matrix is.
And also, you had mentioned to me when we were preparing for this meeting that at that time that the kind of timing was maybe yes, if we were going to do the healthcare things for staff, it would be earlier, faster because of the notice expectations. But I thought that at that point you were thinking that we would want to be taking a vote on this by like August to make sure that we get it. So what's the benefit of, I'm a little worried that we're kicking it down the road.
So.
Or why you're changing your recommendation from what you said in the meeting last week?
So I think one, to be able to align with the open enrollment from a staff standpoint, so to be responsive from a just staff feedback that we receive. I think being able to do that analysis to see, and as you would look at our 8% would save just short of $1 million. When you cut that in half, then we can get to that open enrollment period on January 1st. And that gets us home. That gets us that $450,000, $500,000 that you would need in order to complete that. So I just wanted to be able to provide options so we all knew what we were looking at. If the board wanted to, go ahead, with some premiums from a timing standpoint, this would be kind of the maximum that you could get, if you will. If we decide to go halfway through, you can basically, whatever level we would land at in January, you could cut those savings in half because it would be just half the amount of the year that we'd be having those savings in.
I understand what you're saying about that, but I was under the understanding that if we were looking at, say, 1, 3, and 4, you were recommending when we talked last week that those decisions be made sooner rather than later, more likely in August versus October. Why the shift to later in the year for that?
Oh, I see what you're saying. So the shift for me is looking at the healthcare premiums. I think our ongoing discussion, tonight's feedback is helpful. I think as we would get in our, just going into our timing, we'll know more in the July 1st state aid estimate. and the third Friday count in September, that would be the advantage of waiting until September. But I think going through putting that if-then matrix together, I think is important to be able to land that, to get that in August or as soon as we can, to be able to help with our decision making. Because again, October will come fast, and so we'll have to have some final decisions and a board vote on a budget that we've been committed to making sure that we've got an accurate budget to be able to balance out for next year. We've done, a year's worth of work. I want to make sure if we can get some commitment on some of those things earlier, the better. I'm just not sure, again, in this timeline, as we've had the conversation, I think waiting for that state aid estimate, third Friday starts to be, a little bit late, but I think if you have the if-then matrix set, you can run scenarios out, and we can have some of those conversations both in finance committee and at the board level if we'd like.
Well, and I just think that's the point of a workshop like this. I mean, we're always trying to find the best solution. The best solution is not always the best solution on paper. It's the one that's actually accepted. I know we've all been having conversations since we put out these potential ideas. The one we've gotten the most feedback on, or at least I can say I've gotten the most feedback on, has been healthcare contributions.
Right. Yep.
And I think that you're reading the room quite well. And to Jacob's point, as long as we understand the consequences of what we're doing and we own it, I think it's appropriate. So I appreciate that.
I completely agree with what you two both just said, that the health insurance is the last thing we want to do. So let's exhaust all our possibilities before we go to that route. This Fund 43 and the OPEB stuff, I'm curious, is it the case that if we adjust our employees' health insurance, that correspondingly impacts in a similar manner the OPEB? Or if we're going to spend the time to explore savings in the health insurance, I think your proposal suggested our OPEB is generous. Are there other areas in there to save?
If you make plan design that potentially reduces your premiums, it should reduce your OPEB liability. That's based on what you're going to have to pay out over, I believe, up to 10 years of health insurance, which is again a very, very generous plan, and that's based on current plus anticipated future costs. But if you're through plan design change, if you're able to lower that premium cost, it should lower your liability. And there are things out there you can do that may not sound great, but I mean, if you look at a high deductible plan with a health savings account, that health savings account goes with the staff member when they retire or they leave the district, and you can put a pretty large amount of, you can contribute to that along with the district, and you can build up a pretty good fund for retirement over and above your other retirement funds. Or even if you if you get that high deductible plan when you leave, it helps cover those deductibles. So I mean, there's other options out there that actually can be very beneficial to employees, both short-term and long-term, but you just have to start exploring those. I recommend getting a independent firm, not one that's tied closely to a particular insurer, so that you get a good unbiased look at what those might look like. And then you work with your employees. And we did that back in the 90s. We had a regular health insurance committee that was comprised of staff members, administrators, and I think 1 or 2 board members. And we would meet monthly throughout the school year and talk about what we could do to help keep the health costs down while also maintaining a good health insurance plan that was acceptable to employees.
All right, take us home, Brian.
All right. Okay, so again, those were immediate next steps in thinking about 26, 27. So I think, again, being able to put a group together, probably similar to what Todd had just mentioned, in working through developing a if-then matrix to be able to work through now until October, when the board would need to vote on on the budget. So we'll get that started. We'll have other numbers that will come in. So that'll be specific for the 26-27 budget, so we can land that. As Tim has mentioned earlier, we'll also have this year to be able to close out, so we'll have better information on some of these accounts also as we close out this year and get into probably in July, August timeframe. So when also thinking about future budgets, because that was part of our conversation here, is making sure that we have better forecasting so we're not in this situation as we're moving forward. So, and again, forecasting, is a projection, so it's not an exact science. But I also think it's important for us to be able to have a process to be able to go through for some forecasting that we can do for 27, 28, and for 28, 29. I think that's an important process for us to go through. That'll probably run parallel to the group that's looking at 26, 27. Because as we look at the next couple of years, and we've been upfront with this throughout this year, we've got a couple difficult budget cycles coming up before we feel like it's reasonable to be able to go out to the community and ask for an operational referendum for us. We know we're currently, with all of the reductions that we have right now, and we're projected to reduce around $12 million for next year, 65 positions that have been reduced. So we've done some good work for next year. We know that is also inherently in addition to a $8 million gap that we have that's covered through our current operational referendum. So $7.95 million in a referendum that was passed in 2020 that expires on June 30th, 2030. So that's a date for us that we really have to keep in mind because an additional $8 million for us, in addition to what we're currently in, would be catastrophic. So we want to make sure that we are right-sizing our district for the number of students that we have, that we're being fiscally responsible as we're moving forward, not only for 26, 27, but also for 27, 28, 28, 29, because we want to make sure that we can give ourselves an opportunity to tell our story and be successful as we get to November 7th, 2028, which is what I'm projecting for us to look at an operational referendum that will have to making sure that we get ourselves the support that our staff needs and getting ourselves sustainable long term. What that looks like, that's something we'll need to create over the next couple of years. But I think that's going to be important work. I think working with Todd's forecasting model will be important with that. As we, again, refine our current numbers for this year, we have confidence in our financial software and our employee management system syncing up. So we're at a point now where I can confidently say we're moving forward with some projections now, not only for next year, but with 27, 28, 28-9 coming up, that we can bring the board a projection in October or November this year to be able to make sure that we know, eyes wide open what we're working through. I anticipate a similar process with our reductions next year and the following year that we went through this year. We'll take a look, do an analysis in the fall, and do an analysis in the spring as we do our staffing. We certainly made some big reductions this year. Our forecasting is going to determine, how those reductions need to be. But we need to be able to see the goalposts accurately, and certainly that's what we ran into this year. Also knowing that it's never going to be perfect. It's not an exact science. There's always going to be some estimates, but we certainly can can do a better job than we have, and that's what we're committed to doing as we're moving forward. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Like others, I have concerns about the projected increases in employee health costs. I think it's really important to understand that all of our employees are under this health plan. So whether you're food service or you're a central office administrator, you're a teacher, paraprofessional, custodial maintenance, these would apply to all employees. And those are pretty substantial numbers for the family plan, percentage-wise. When we're giving minimal wage increases, I just think we need to make sure we keep in mind that these apply to all employees, not just our higher paid employees, but everybody. And think about the burden that shares. And when you're, if you're a young family and you would be facing an increase of over $100 a month in your health care costs, that's pretty substantial. Or if you're making $14 an hour or $16 an hour, that's pretty substantial if you have to come up with an extra $100 or so on your family plan. So I just hope we remember that when we're making these decisions.
Very good point, Barb. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you guys for coming up. I appreciate it. Appreciate the
Thank you
insight.
very
We'll be in
Thank you,
touch.
board members. I think that was real productive.
Conversation.
Well, the next item hopefully should be easier. This one comes from me. As you can hopefully get a chance to look at that proposal for revisions to the board listening sessions. This is just another workshop. But basically, you know, we've heard some concerns about the usefulness and accessibility of our board listening sessions, and I'm hoping this proposal could address some of these issues. So specifically, we would have to change policy 0166, so once again, a policy issue here, and that's the agenda policy. So basically, just the proposal would be to change it so we'd have a listening session that would be held. Well, currently it says we'll have a listening session held immediately prior to the first meeting of the month with 2 board members, the superintendent, and representatives of the cabinet present, using a rotation schedule. This change would be having a monthly listening session during the school year and one during the summer, attended by the superintendent, at least 2 board members, and other guests that are invited by the superintendent. But the idea would be to hold it at a community location rather than district offices, so we can stagger locations and times, have monthly themes for more focused discussions, and the themes would be something that we agree upon as a board and the superintendent. The pros here, I think, would be changing times and locations, so more participation from diverse members of our community. Themes would allow us to be more focused and more productive, and it still doesn't preclude anyone from contacting the board or superintendent on any issue at any time. So this being a workshop, I think what we would need to do is hear if a majority of the board think this is a productive change, or if they have other ideas, and if so, the next step would be to change policy 0166. Just as an aside, if we are revisiting policy 0166, I would suggest we also take a look at moving our citizen comments to the front of the meeting. But I figure I'd just sneak that in there if we are referring this to a policy discussion. But that's the proposal, so curious what people have to say about that. Yeah, Beth.
It was certainly something that I felt came out loud and clear at the summit, that our citizens wanted to be heard. They want to have some input on these topics, and it's interesting these topics kind of mirror what we're hearing as our 6 big topics. So I'd certainly be interested in exploring this.
Others, yeah, Molly.
I heard a quote today about how smart people know the answers and wise people ask the right question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I think we're jumping to an answer without knowing what the question is here. I think we have heard loud and clear that the community wants a voice and wants engagement. I don't think we've heard loud and clear that they want the district setting the agenda for that. And I think there's an extreme value that we would be losing if we didn't maintain an absolute open forum where everyone where everyone can come and talk what they think is important. So my view on this is, I mean, there are tons of things our district can and should be doing for community engagement that we are not. There are districts like the Menasha superintendent was doing monthly coffees with the superintendent at various locations. There's tons of outreach, and I'm in favor of all of those options. And I also think that we need to preserve a opportunity for people to come in and have a conversation with leadership in the district without us setting the agenda and without us dictating the conversation. So I don't, and I also think that I think we are underestimating the importance of the format that we have of making sure that there's an opportunity right before a board meeting for people to talk with us, because 3 minutes is kind of hard and sometimes people don't want to be on the record in a public forum. So again, I think we need to make sure that we are asking the right question before we can find a solution to this, and I'm not sure that we're there yet. That being said, I don't think any of the things that is proposed in here are things that are precluded right now from happening, and I kind of wish that could all happen and it can happen without any kind of policy change.
Others? Yeah, Barb.
We had a proposal similar to this when Bob Peschel was board president, and his idea was to maintain the listening sessions at the first meeting of the month and to add opportunities to go out into the community. Specifically, I think he was looking at the farmers market. I'd like to see both. I think having been someone who's been at a booth in the farmers market, it's a different atmosphere. Not better, not worse. It's just different. And I think you have more opportunities. I agree with Molly. I think there are lots more things that we could be doing as a district in terms of community outreach and engagement with the community overall and with our families. And so I would not like to see us lose the listening sessions before the board meetings. I think that provides a convenient opportunity for people who want to come to that listening session and be heard, and they may not want to speak in front of the cameras, or they want to speak in the small room down the hall, but they want to find out what the conversation is going to be here, and it provides an easy transition for them. So I'm not in favor of eliminating the listening sessions before the first meetings of the month at this point. Maybe in the future, but I would like to see us have some outreach opportunities out into the community, whether that's the farmers market or that's something else. But I think we could do a better job of responding, as Beth noted, from what we heard at the summit as far as wanting more access and more input from the general population.
Okay, so I'm hearing two that don't want it. No, so we got.
I forgot one
four.
comment, if I could finish one other thing before then. My other point with the listening session is I think, again, when I'm saying we need to ask the right question, I think one of the significant frustrations of the listening session is that people who attend that listening session don't feel that we are listening, and that no action is taken after that, or that there is no accountability or follow-up, and that they bring the same things over and over and over again. And that's, to me, the bigger issue with engagement of, are we actually listening, not just hearing the voices of what people are saying to us? So I don't think that changing the format would fix that. I think that that's something that we all, both administration and as a board, need to work through on how we actually do integrate the voices and opinions of our constituents into our decision-making processes and make the changes that come up, whether they're in the public forums or whether in the listening session or in any of these many other formats that would be amazing to be having throughout the community.
Okay, there's two against us. What do we got? Again, 4, right? I mean, I know that that's a persistent complaint, but as I'm fond of saying and writing, me screaming from the rooftops doesn't do anything unless 4 of us agree to it.
I mean, the more communication we have with the community is a good thing.
Okay.
So having more times available, maybe like Barb said, we can keep, the original listening session and just add on other things like this or coffee shop meet and greets. But yeah, I mean, any information from our community, all the information we can gather is a good thing. I guess I'd kind of be for it.
I agree. I substantially agree with Molly that I don't feel like we get to control the agenda on these things. So, and that then kind of demands that we retain some form of the existing listening session. So, I mean, maybe we cut it back to every other month. I'd be open to that kind of thing, but I do like the idea of finding the other ways of doing it, so I'm not 100% with you, Mike, but I appreciate the effort.
That's okay. I mean, again, I've seen value in themes, but I can read the room, so we can move on. It's not happening. That's okay. All right, well, thank you, everybody. The next item is the consent resolution. So for the consent agenda, the board has been furnished with background material on each item or has discussed it at a previous meeting. These will be acted upon with one vote without discussion. If a board member would like to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. No board vote is needed at this point to move resolutions from consent agenda to individually considered. Anybody have anyone they want to pull?
I would like to pull 4.
4, the minutes of the special board meeting reorganization?
Yeah.
That one?
Yeah.
All right, we'll pull 4. Anything else? So I will need a motion for the consent agenda first.
So move.
Second, Barb.
First by Wyman.
Yeah, first
Just
by
making
Wyman.
sure Roxy-
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry, Roxy.
Yeah,
So
she has to
moving number
navigate the
4.
consent agenda.
Please call the roll.
So it's Herzog,
Aye.
Hess,
Aye.
Smeltney,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Wyman,
Aye.
and Ford.
Aye.
Motion passed.
All right, so number 4, the minutes of April 27th, our special board meeting for reorganization.
I only pulled it because 20 minutes before the meeting, I looked at it one last time, and I see
Actually, should I
it's-
step back? Don't we need a motion to consider it?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. A
Oh.
motion to consider?
I move.
I'll second. Sorry.
So, yeah,
Go ahead, Tim.
I looked at it and I see that there's some stuff in the narrative that is factually not quite right, that where was it? The clerk. It says Beth Wyman nominated Molly Smeltnik, but then somehow at the end of it, Wyman was elected clerk, so apparently you're both the vice president and the clerk.
Sweet, you
So,
want license?
I just asked
Yeah.
that we
Well, why don't
table
we-
this and hopefully somebody go back and, because I didn't go and review it or anything, just,
All right,
let's
you
just
wanna-
technically fix it.
Want to revise your motion to table?
Yes. Let's.
All right, I'll revise my second to table this to the next meeting.
And Tim, it was that specific section, right? I mean,
It
we'll
was
look at
that.
we'll look at the whole thing.
Yeah, it was that specific
was
section
something
that I know was awkward, because Beth didn't get both. I mean, if she wants it, I mean.
Do not.
Good catch.
Any comment on that? I'd like to thank you for being so thorough, Tim.
Mm,
People
yeah.
accuse us sometimes of not reading the materials. No one can accuse you of that.
That's good.
Clerk, call the roll.
Hess,
Aye.
Smeltney,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Wyman,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
All right, we have no individually considered resolutions. Request for future items for committee review. I did have one in there just to revisit our, I'd sent you all those materials about adding citizen committees to board, to boards, and I think that people are now good to go ahead and add that to the future agenda item for policy and governance, specifically looking at adding 2 people per committee and exploring the idea of either having the president make an initial recommendation for board approval, or having a committee of the chairs of the subcommittees make that recommendation. But I'll let you all work that out how you want to do it.
I just want to say I appreciate your sending out those materials on both the Oshkosh Common Council as well as the Stevens Point Area School District. And I did have an opportunity today to spend some time with the board president of Stevens Point, whom I know, who filled me in on how this works in Stevens Point, and I found that to be very helpful.
No, thank you. And my apologies for not having that to you before.
So Mike, and that's for policy and governance?
Yeah,
review?
to go to policy and
To
governance.
go to policy and governance.
Because it would require policy
Yep,
changes.
all right, just wanted.
And just to clarify, Mike, you're talking the policy to potentially include citizens, or I think you had also discussed potentially additional
Well, the
committees.
The
Is that
committee
part of
changes
it?
we already
That's
were
on
agreed
the
upon.
radar.
Okay.
Yeah, we already had majority saying we
Okay.
want to do that, but we didn't, we wanted to see more materials last time about the citizens, so wanted to have that.
I like how you give Molly more work. That's good.
I know, I feel bad, especially after she told me she didn't want to be in charge of policy and governance. But we need lawyers. My mom always said, we need more lawyers in the world.
I'm gonna hold my tongue.
Well, thank you. Any other requests for future items for committee review? Any announcements?
I just wanted to say the district was, I was very proud to be a part of the Oshkosh Area School District when I saw all the bands at the Memorial Day Parade. They were absolutely fantastic.
Awesome.
And they sounded good, too.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
Sounded good.
All right, motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second, Barb.
Lyman and Herzog.
my gown. I'm making sure that they. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to vote on this,
Yeah, we
right?
should call the roll.
Yeah, call the roll.
One more time.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ford.
Aye.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
All right.
So, aye. We're adjourned. Oh, I gotta.
Nice.
Now we're official.